Hello everyone, Dan Swift here, founder and CEO at Numentum, and welcome to the Speaker Series, where we spotlight some of the most interesting minds in the world of revenue generation. At Numentum, we help forward-thinking B2B organizations create better buyer experiences and deliver new momentum to their revenue engine. On this episode of the Speaker Series, we speak with Eric Olson, Chief Marketing Officer at Quickbase. We have a great conversation around connecting to customers at a personal level, helping leaders lead, and bringing compassion and empathy into the workplace. Eric, welcome to the Speaker Series.
I feel very honored to be on. I think people call you Swifty though, right?
it begins, yes, they do. Even my mother does, which is a little bit disconcerting. But we can go with whatever makes you comfortable. So how are you doing anyway?
Yeah, doing really great. We're kicking off our year here. Obviously we've all been navigating, I think as we're going to talk about today, some super interesting times the last couple years, but really excited to kind of kick off. It's always like rejuvenating to kind of come in with a plan for the year, team fired up. So ready to go.
I love it. Well, let's start with what you're doing right now. So you're the CMO at Quickbase. Could you share with our listeners just a little bit about Quickbase and what is it that you're solving for your customers?
Yeah, what we do best is we help organizations see, connect, and control every aspect of really complex projects. So whether that's building a building or prototyping an electric car, or work with a customer that does auto delivery, point-to-point delivery for folks all over the world. Whatever it is that's a complex, unique process, we have a platform that enables that.
Wow. So you're coming up to what, about two and a half years in the role? Is that right?
Yeah, about almost 3 actually, which is scary how time flies like that.
It really does, doesn't it? So as you look back at this first period of your tenure, what are you most proud of? And when you think to the future, what's next?
Yeah, great question. I think what I'm most proud of is I think leaders do 2 things, right? I think they create strategic clarity and they build strong cultures. I'm proud of both, but I think I'm most proud of the marketing community we've built. I feel like we've built an adaptable culture that also has a whole lot of compassion and empathy, which has been so important right now. I think that's what I'm most proud of. I think what I'm looking forward to, though, is maybe more on the strategic side. We've really been on a journey. When I came in, we very much positioned this as a horizontal platform that can do a lot of workflows and integrations for a lot of different things. And so, we joked around that our marketing strategy was similar to like the people that spin signs on the side of the street and say, like, buy a mattress. It's like, buy a Quickbase. Do you need a Quickbase? We can do so many different things. What I'm really looking forward to is, to my statement earlier, I think we've really come to understand what we're best at. And we're able to kind of articulate who our ideal customer is. And it's super energizing because I think, our purpose that we talk about is unlocking organizations' potential. And so our ability to help with some of these big complex projects that are going on in the world, like, building out, EV charger networks, for example, for a more sustainable world is a really inspiring mission. But it's also just focusing for our team on what we're really good at. And I think that gives us, just an awesome opportunity to kind of live our purpose at bigger scale.
I love it. Now we met back in 2018. And I remember having the opportunity to do a keynote presentation, and it was at your previous employer, Sovos, and it was a sales kickoff up in Cape Cod, which was, I remember, being a phenomenal location. Now, you were the CMO at the time. So when we did that session, and obviously the theme was digital selling, what do you feel that your sales organization took from that session?
Great question. I think I come back to that session a lot, though I don't remember portions of that weekend like you did at sales kickoffs. But I do remember your session, and I think it was I talk about it still, because I think it was actually a pivotal point for us. Every organization I've joined, I've kind of gone on the same journey. We've gone from being, hey, we have this awesome product that does a lot of things. Like, why don't more people buy it? And like, can't you just go market things? To actually an organization where we put the customer at the center, and we say, like, just from in marketing and sales, like, what is it that they really care about? And how do we give first to help them solve that problem, versus the reverse of saying, hey, we're going to position and sell and pressure you. And I think that moment for us was pivotal in the sales reps sort of recognizing that the hero in their story is the customer. And so it's about providing value-driven, high value and relative conversations at where they are in the buy process, versus just hammering them and pressure selling them. I remember, correct me if I get the math wrong, but I think your math was like 70% sharing valuable information and 30% about the company. And I think that after you left, that really stuck as sort of in our ethos. And I watched immediately our sales reps all of a sudden start coming to us in marketing and saying, hey, what's some content that I can share about this topic, right? So it changed the conversation from like, hey, just give me more one sheet so I can say what Sovos does, to actually like, hey, like what are some content around these topics that my customers care about? And I think particularly like the now, that's just critically important. I mean, like the way the buy process works, you can't be, I heard the term once that some sellers are like talking websites, right? And that used to be what sellers kind of were, right? Before you could, the freedom of information. And so, but I can go get that information on your website. If you're going to engage me as a seller, give me information I can't get, like that's going to help me solve. So I think that's, that was a kind of a pivotal moment for us and our sales team, and really aligning marketing and sales.
I love that. And I'd love your take on this. So since then, and it was 3 years ago, we've actually tweaked that content strategy a little bit. So we now teach a 50-25-25 rule. And 50% is actually what we want people to be pushing out about the company and produced by the company. So we've actually increased it a little bit. 25% should be what is it that the people that you're ultimately trying to sell to would be reading themselves ordinarily, because if you can provide that as a salesperson, right, you elevate yourself in their minds, and it's got to be from obviously reputable third-party sources. And then the final 25%, which has changed a lot, is personal. So occasionally, you mentioned it earlier, picture maybe if you've got a newborn, as I just did, but I'm talking more about personal content, things that you are personally interested in, professional passions that you might have that kind of humanize yourself to the people in your network. So now you've heard that. Talk to me a little bit about that as a strategy. Does that resonate with you as a CMO?
It does so much. So actually, one of the things I talk about a lot with my team is like, we're really not competing with other B2B marketers for mindshare. We're competing with Instagram, right? And you look at the stuff that's on there, and it comes back to I think the same sort of thesis we were talking about. It's like, if the buyer is the hero of your story, or if like your friend group is the hero of your story, then what do they care about? And a lot of that is personal. We're humans and we connect on a personal nature, right? There is, so I'm a big believer in that. And I see that in sort of business media, but there's a guy I follow on Instagram. His name's Brooks Curran. He's a skier. So I ski. He has this sort of niche view of like, he creates content that is about making Vermont skiing like look really cool. Like it's like, it's a very niche audience, but it's like, but there's a sense of humor to it. There's like a personal element to his account, and like, there's some product in there, but it is like, he knows his audience. He's very authentic to that. He's not trying to be what he is. And his core personality is like being genuinely excited about that. And so I think it's the same as you think about you as a business personality. There is the thing that you do, and you got to convey that. But I'm a big believer that like, people want to do business with people. So like, the thing that you should do should be an extension of who you are and your values, right? So I think that is a big missing piece. I think I had a conversation today with someone who came to our team from a B2C world, and she was saying, some of the things I did there, just, do they apply here? And I was like, I think like, people step into a B2B world and they think they need to be like really boring and technical.
Right. Yeah.
But we're human and emotional. Like, and if anything, like, I think, as you know well, like a B2B sale is far more emotional in a lot of ways than like if I buy the wrong like Gatorade, that doesn't affect my day. If I buy the wrong like $1 million software solution for my company, like that can be pretty emotional for me. So it's, I want someone I can trust and build a human relationship on, and so yeah, massively agree with that.
We've both got young families, right? So you got 2 kids under 4. I've got 3 kids under 6. I can't imagine running a global marketing organization during a global pandemic has been particularly easy. So what have been some of those challenges working remotely while trying to lead this marketing organization globally? Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Yeah. Nothing's easy. I mean, I feel really fortunate actually to like, the world that we live in, you can do a lot remote. But and so generally I'm very grateful for like the opportunity we have in all of this to like feel way better off than a lot of people I know, like working in hospitals and healthcare and stuff. Really, my sister works at Boston Children's Hospital, and like it's a nightmare there right now. So I feel really fortunate, but it doesn't mean it doesn't come without challenges. And I think like the biggest lesson I think I've learned in this is that leadership matters more now than ever. Like real leadership, like genuine, like it's an art. And I think you could kind of get by before with managers who were okay, and people would stay because they believe in the company and whatever. More and more what I'm seeing is like we need managers who are real leadership athletes, meaning that like they can set real clarity, to my earlier comment, and that leaders set strategic clarity and build culture. Doing that is hard, and I think like particularly in the pandemic, the biggest challenge is building up leaders that can be compassionate, empathetic, and supportive of the team in a time where the world around them is just crazy, because that takes a lot of energy, right? To your point, like I get off this call and I got 2 kids. You need a lot of attention and a lot of love, and so but you've got to give that same love to your employees right now. And so I think that's been the biggest challenge, is like how do we get the right leaders in place and build up our leaders so that they can operate and help their people manage through a challenging time. Because I think you're seeing the great resignation right now, because people have choices, and they're like the bar is high for what we're willing to accept. And so if they're not getting that from their leader, they're going to go somewhere else. So that's, I think just getting world-class leaders in place in all places has been probably the biggest challenge that I think a lot of us are facing right now.
And LinkedIn is blowing up right now, right, with people starting new roles at the start of the year. I mean, I've not seen anything like it before. But going back to something you just said about compassion and creating, you said it twice now, you've created this environment, a compassionate environment. How have you done that? Does that come from you and it's fed into your marketing organization? Or have you been hiring leaders and testing for that traits? Like, how have you done it?
I think it's got to start from the values of the company. And so, one of the things we have done over the last year, we had a new CEO who joined, a year and a half or so ago now. And, we really sat down and took what was a fairly confusing and misaligned set of values and did like put some real work into like, what is it that we really believe in and that is core and that we're going to hold ourselves to. And we came up with 3 that I think have really been the anchor for that, right? So we talk about win together, like that's that sort of like that team over individual sort of mentality. Improve every day. So like I'm a very iterative leader. It's something I believe in. So it's that comfort to go just, you don't have to overplan. You don't have to worry about if you fail every now. Just get better every single day and take ownership. And so the combination of those values actually is very congruent, right, with compassion and empathy, because it's about sort of supporting each other. It's about kind of continuously being vulnerable and continuously improving. And so I think if you don't have that, like you can be, you try to run a marketing team that way, it's never going to work. And so I think it starts with, really being clear and authentic in your values. And then it's just not wavering on that, right? Like you have to hire fire on those values. And you have to develop, more importantly, on those values. So I think it's you have to treat it at the same level as you treat strategy. Like for me, like strategy is way more fun than that's like the fun, cool, creative stuff that like we got into marketing for in the first place. But like you got to put the same amount of work into establishing and maintaining a strong sort of trusting culture.
And it's so interesting with so many people with the Great Resignation leaving roles, not just for more money, leaving roles and running from less compassionate organizations to one that are more compassionate and more supportive and sometimes for less money, which I think people are reevaluating, right? What's actually important to them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I don't want anyone to walk away from this thinking we've got it all right. That's why I listed it a biggest challenge. It's just something that I think organizations are going to have to work on and develop every day.
So I've got a quote here, which I thought was fantastic, and it's actually from your LinkedIn summary. So forgive me for reading. I didn't memorize it, but here we go. So when I started my career as a journalist, I didn't know what marketers did. I assumed they wrote the ads that paid my salary, but beyond that, my understanding was based loosely on what I took away from watching planes, trains, and automobiles. What I quickly learned is that marketers are much like journalists. The great ones take very complex things and make them elegantly simple and actionable. I love it. So you've been doing this for more than 20 years. Based on what you've seen, what's something that those just getting into marketing now might be surprised to know?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, I don't know if it's a surprise, but it's something that's overlooked, right? That is like the art of persuasion, and particularly copywriting, is still the core of marketing, no matter what you do, right? I feel like I still get in so many conversations that are about sort of the technical sides of marketing and different channels and measurement. And I think we get so lost in all those metrics sometimes that we lose the fact that, like that quote kind of says, like, it comes back to like, can you convey an idea and make it simple and actionable for an audience that they actually give a rip and are going to take action, right? One thing I say to my team a lot is that, like, will this make someone stop in their tracks? Like, hey, we're selling to, like, we sell into construction, for example. Like, you got someone who's their head running around with their hair on fire because they've got 5 construction projects, they're all behind, whatever. Like, is this book going to help them? Like, is it going to make them like stop in their tracks and take action? And that doesn't come down to like, hey, we paid for the right ad. That comes down to like, what did you say that caught them, right? So I think that just gets missed.
So you have had and continue to have had an incredible career. And what fascinates me is the diversity of the roles that you've had throughout your career. So I know you started as a reporter, a sales leader, you were a chief revenue officer, obviously a marketing leader, a GM, a CEO, and now a chief marketing officer. So you write about your role as a CEO that you slept little, but learned a lot. Now, having held all of these different types of roles throughout your career, all different parts of the revenue engine, do you feel as though it's helped you become the successful marketer that you are today?
100%. Yeah, and I wish I could say like it was some big prescriptive plan to get there. Like, really, I've always I'm actually not all that, I shouldn't say this with like, the people listening, but I'm actually not that financially motivated. I'm like, I'm really motivated by solving like big, important problems that I feel passionate about. And so like, I've kind of directed my career to the things that give me energy. And that, like, luckily, like, I have a little ADD. And so it's kind of led me around. So when, I have, there's a great program here in Northeastern University called the Co-op program, where people actually come, they're not just interns, like they sit on our team for 6 months, and they're fantastic. One of the things, like every time I sit down with them, they ask me like, if there's one piece of career advice, what would you give me? And like the advice I give them is just like, try a lot of different things and use those to kind of learn and build not only understanding of yourself, but empathy for other groups, right? I don't think you can be in marketing if you haven't carried a bag in sales. That's maybe a bold statement, but like, I don't know how you do it. Like, I don't know, like if you can really empathize with what it means to actually carry that burden and like be there in that meeting. If you haven't done it. And so I feel fortunate that I've done all those things, because I feel like it gives me great empathy for other groups. And I do think the role of the CMO now is completely different than it was years ago. Like, I think it used to kind of be like, hey, like get some brand awareness and get some demand, right? Now it's like, there's a term being thrown around, the chief market officer. And I think that's sort of whether that's the right term or not, I don't know. That's the right idea though. That, I think the CMO and the buy process is so diffused and so complex that having like this sort of assembly line from marketing to sales just completely, as you know, just completely doesn't work anymore. Like that's not how buyers buy. And so I think the CMO is being asked to look at things and like really provide the understanding of the market and help connect all those dots along the journey, to use sales marketing as channels, to help people kind of along the way. And I just can't imagine doing that unless if I hadn't sat in some of those other roles.
I know our chief marketing officer, Rebecca Jakarta, would say exactly the same thing. She carried a bag early on in her career and always says it helped her enormously. So with that lens, though, you've sat in both seats. So what is your take on this much talked about topic of sales and marketing alignment? What would you like to share with our listeners?
We could take the whole podcast on that topic. But for the reason I just said, like that to the buyer, there is no sales, there's no marketing, there's no CSMs, there's no digital, it's just Quickbase for us, right? And so we need to be one united force. Recognizing though that they are two fundamentally different disciplines to manage, right? So I'm actually not a huge believer that there should be one manager over both. I think the tension between like a CMO and a CRO is really healthy, as long as they're aligned. I think like the thing that holds a lot of marketers back, I think, is we get obsessed with attribution. And like every podcast I listen to, that's like, what's your biggest challenge? I say attribution. It's like, is it really though? Like, what is that going to give you? That like, it's like attribution's a magic panacea. It's guiding to know sort of where your investments are, but I think it misses the point. When I work with Mike on my my CRO, our vision is that we have one goal. Like we know that the market we're going after, we know what we expect to get out of that market, and whether the last hit comes from sales or marketing, like that doesn't really matter. It's are we kind of delivering the right message to the right buyer at the right time, so we're having quality, trusted interactions along the buy process. But that starts with just a mentality and a culture that like, hey, we look at this together. But there's a big operational component to it too. Like you have to embrace, operational frameworks like integrated campaigns that are going to actually sort of manage your business manage and report on your business based on initiatives, not on functions. And that's a huge, huge hard pivot for a lot of people to make.
How would you describe your leadership style, and how has it developed over time?
Yeah, no, massively. I look back at the leader I was. I remember a couple cringeworthy moments in my career, but I remember one where like I gave this it was when I was a GM, and I gave this kind of kickoff kind of thing that I thought was great. It had like all this information in it, and then I realized at the end of the day, like it was a bunch of interesting strategic information, but like it said nothing about what the employees actually cared about. And so like I think I've developed a lot as a leader. I would say like when I look at sort of what I value and kind of hold myself accountable to, I think there's a few things that come up. So like one is authenticity. I don't know if you've ever taken sort of the insights profile where they give you kind of your color wheel of your different preferences.
Oh, no, I haven't actually. No.
Like Myers-Briggs or
right. Okay. Yeah.
But they give you a readout, and they kind of give you your conscious and unconscious, and mine are about the same, which I say like it must mean I'm authentic, like what or it means I'm an asshole, because like, I am at home the same way. I don't adapt a lot for work, but I really value that, and I think people do, particularly to what you talked about earlier as far as being a human. Like I really I try to be authentic and vulnerable, and it's hard sometimes to just share. I got up in one of my town halls the other day, and there was somebody left, and I had to kind of get in front of everyone and say, guys, that's on me. Like I messed that up. Here's what happened. And like I think it shows vulnerability. Team likes it. That's hard to do. But so authenticity is a big one for me. And then number two for me would be collaboration and inclusiveness. So managers on my team, the first thing I talk to them about is the concept of team one, meaning that like when we're a management team, like this is your team. You don't manage events, you don't manage digital. Like when you're here, you're a CMO. And so that's, and I try to build teams that are diverse in the sort of, traditional definition of diversity from different, ethnic backgrounds and things, but also in style, like people that are very much introverted data people that are very much like visionary sort of storytellers, and it creates a lot of tension, right? But that tension makes us better. And so, but like as a leader, it is collaborative, so authentic and collaborative. And then ultimately, I think what people would describe me as is optimistic. I think, people want to follow it, and it gets me in trouble sometimes. I think it's a strength. It's also a weakness. People would say that I'm overly optimistic on people. If, Jim Collins talks about like you default to develop or replace. I tend to default to develop because I believe people can do anything. But as a leader, like I just lean into that. Like I really, I'm a firm optimist that I believe in the passion, the power of possibilities.
I think in the current climate, I think it's a fantastic trait to have,
Yeah.
But in terms of staying balanced, now you mentioned, with everything that you're responsible for, a huge role. How do you stay balanced? You mentioned skiing earlier, so is that one of the things that you do to kind of blow off steam? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been hard for me. I don't like, there was a point in my early career where I was focused a lot on extrinsic rewards. I was, working 24 hours a day. And like, I honestly reached a point where like, I was like, having panic attacks. It was just really miserable. And it's like, since then I have been sort of on a, like in the spirit of improve every day kind of journey to try to find, it's not necessarily balance. I think it is more like spending time in the places that give me energy when I need it. Right. And so, for example, like, I get up and I love jumping right into work at like 6, 7 in the morning. Right. So I'll get up and just get like, before my kids wake up, I jam a couple hours. But I also like that I can go sort of wake my daughter up and like have like some breakfast with her. And then in the middle of the day, I try to have like I try to get on the bike or run, because I can almost have 2 days then, like, because I need time to process and like get the endorphins going. So yeah, but for me, there's that balance of three things I think are pretty standard for everyone. Like I focus on getting myself in the work projects I love and get energy from, spending time with my kids because they're going to be a tremendous amount of energy, but like really, and I'm not great at it, but like be present with the kids. Like that's where I struggle the most, because you get pulled back into the work thing. And then I do, like my wife was a professional triathlete, and she so she kind of taught me to love, I always love the outdoors, but she taught me to love sort of like doing like endurance sports for a long time outdoors. And so we have way too many bikes. I think the rule is that the perfect amount of bikes is N+1, with the current number of bikes being N. So we have way too many bikes, and we ski. We have a place up in Vermont, and we actually do a lot of uphill skiing, skinning up and skiing down. So just being outside, exercising, and like that makes me a better human, right? I have found every time I pivot too hard on any of those three, I lose it. And I think that's just, it's for everyone to figure out. It's like, what are those things that give you energy, and like, how do you balance them? And I'm still trying to figure that out. But every time I go too hard in any of those directions, I lose energy. So that's just like a constant battle.
Did becoming a father, I bet it did. How did becoming a father change the way that you look at business?
I think like everybody, it just completely changes your perspective of what's important in the world. I think it made me even more interested in looking at business and teams with compassion and empathy, like we talked about earlier. Right. And really, I already did like I think early in my career, like I said, I was individually focused. And then I've really changed, over the years, to take great energy from the success of the team. There's nothing more energizing seeing your children sort of grow up and blossom and learn new things. And like, and I think I've taken that back to business too, right? Like, it just gives you like, a great appreciation for, I think how short life is, and for how good it feels when people around you grow and learn and develop. And so like, I think it's made me more of a teacher mindset than I ever had before.
Amazing. In terms of influences that you've had on yourself during your career, what is the best leadership advice that you've ever had?
Yeah, it's interesting. It comes back to a little bit of a topic we talked about earlier. And so Brad Feld is a great, VC guy out in Boulder, Colorado. He started Techstars, and like, yeah, I don't know him very well, but one of his things he's talked about a lot, and he shared with me early in his career, was to give first, right? And I think about that. I think about that all the time, right? That like, even it comes back to tactically what we talked about earlier, and outreach, and how do you get people through social media. I get so many emails every day that are like, hey, like, I can sell you this like customer data platform that will change your life. It's like, you don't start there, right? Like, I don't know you. I don't know, you're not talking like, make me the hero in your story. Give first, right? And so it's something I try to do as much as I can, is like give without thinking they're going to receive, right? Whether that's in like, and through a marketing endeavor where we're just trying to create great content for our market, or it's, it's kind of helping out other, CMOs where I can, if there's something I know more than them. Like, I just, I that's probably the best advice I got. And I think like, if you kind of give first and produce value, like whatever you want is going to come out of that.
I love it. I love it. And it's so interesting as well, because I think that's one of the things that sellers struggle with the most when it comes to digital and digital selling, because you're essentially saying, okay, give to your network, start posting, don't expect anything back from it immediately, short or medium term. You may, but it's more about giving to your network and the people that ultimately might buy from you at some point in the future. And because sellers, a lot of us want instant gratification, right? That element of digital sometimes just doesn't land with them. You feel that?
Yeah, it totally does. And it actually goes back to your personal comment earlier too. Like, I think when I am sold to, right, and I'm sold to a lot because I'm a CMO. There are kind of two things that like I realize that turn me off, right? There is if it's not about me, like if you're not actually helping me solve a problem I care about, obviously, is a big one. And then do I feel like you're going to pressure me, which means like I'm not necessarily reacting to what you have, right? Like you might have something really good. I'm reacting to you. And I'm not sure sellers get that, right? Like it's like, well, like I just didn't have the right message when I got there. It's like, no, like, you just didn't build trust, right? And so like they're not interested in your message because they think you're just going to high pressure sell them into something. If you just like, randomly called me out of the blue and said, hey, Eric, we haven't met, will you be on my podcast for my company? Like, I'd probably be like, no, I don't think so, Dad. But you build a relationship. And so like, I'm happy to be part of this. And this probably like gets us closer to maybe working together again somewhere down the line. Right. So it's, I think it applies so much to sales, and that like, you have to trust that if you're providing value based on where that person is in the process, that's going to come down to you. Because the other thing is like, it's something like 3% of companies are actually at a stage where they're ready to buy. And so that means if you're just hitting them up saying like, hey, get on a meeting and let me pitch you a product, like that's not where they are. And so like, you're not helping them, and you're going to burn that relationship, and they're not going to come to you when they actually do need help.
Well, Eric, before we let you go, I have to do a quick fire round with you. We've got some great questions for you. Are you up for this?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Fire away.
All right. If there's anything you say that I want to go a little deeper on, I'm going to pause, but let's see how we go. So first question, who is your hero?
He would be shocked by this, but I would say my father, actually. He was, rural medicine, like family doctor, like one of the hardest jobs ever. Like I always say, like I grew up feeling like I was the sort of richest, like, most taken care of kid in the world. But my dad worked his ass off for very little. And, talk about sort of give first, like he's still out there doing vaccine clinics, retired, but doing vaccine clinics all around the state of New Hampshire. So, I think he's just the embodiment of like, really someone who cares deeply about, the people around him, his community, and was always looking out for that.
Amazing. The best sales leader that you've ever partnered with?
I'm actually gonna have to say the current, and it's not just because he might hear this, but Mike McGinnis. I think it is to some of the things we've talked about. Like we both have a really aligned view that sales and marketing have to have the same goals and objectives and work together, and it's not about one or the other. And so he's a great partner. He also, I think, to the other part, I don't think a CRO and a CMO are the same people, and we could not be more different people. And I think that's a really good thing, because he's focused after go get the number, build a sales machine. And I'm thinking a little farther down the line of how to, like, what is the market? How do we go get it? And it's just a great partnership where I would sure as heck wouldn't want his job, and he sure as heck wouldn't want mine. But we feel like we're in it together to win together.
Nice. Now, I was going to ask you if you were a morning lark or a night owl, but you said you were up early, working at 6 o'clock. Does that mean you're going to bed early too, or are you burning the candle at both ends?
It depends on the day, but I definitely am my most creative now is in the morning, which is never the case. I used to be, when I was like a copywriter early in my career, like I would stay up doing work till 2, 3 in the morning, and that was my jam. But I think, as with age and children, you start to gravitate towards earlier hours.
What's the last Halloween costume you wore?
Baby shark. Our whole family, actually. We're a family of sharks, and there's a picture of me actually consuming my infant son as a baby shark. So
I have to see this. Please. Favorite city in the world?
That's a hard one. I guess what comes to mind is Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong. The food, the energy, just just where you kind of are in the world and access to everything.
Is there a city or country that you haven't visited that you would love to visit?
Really, anywhere in Africa. Like I've traveled extensively in my career, everywhere. Yeah, Asia, Europe, and I spent time living in Europe. But like I haven't really done anything in Africa. Like we have good friends in South Africa, and I'd love to kind of get down into that area.
When the world opens up, you never know. How many cups of coffee a day are you, Eric?
I have 1 to 2 excellent cups of coffee. So we have a full sort of rocket espresso setup. I've become, in the pandemic, quite the coffee snob. As people I work with know, I sort of cringe when I hear the Keurig turn on. Yeah. So, but I don't drink a lot of it, but I try to make sure it is excellent.
Quality over quantity. All right, last question for you. What would you tell your younger self?
To relax, maybe. I think my younger self was very, as I said earlier, sort of very consumed with extrinsic reward and having to get to some sort of ambitious goal. And so I would like that person to know that, like, ultimately what you're going to value is the impact you have on other people in the world, and to just relax, give first. Like I said earlier, maybe I'll end with that. Now, maybe that would be the advice. Relax.
Nice. Love it.
And give first.
Beautiful. Eric, thank you. I really appreciate you being on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really fun, Swifty. Good to see you again.